I was becoming more at one with this light, and I knew it was a home for me. It was where I belonged. And the more I'm standing there in it, the more I feel healed and refreshed and rejuvenated. And there's no English words to describe it. I just felt at one and at peace with it. And I could sit in that state forever. It felt amazing.
Hello and welcome back. I'm here today with Crystal Faith, who had a near-death experience in 2000. Hi, Crystal. Thank you so much for joining us. You actually you did die. You were pronounced dead. Can you tell me what happened?
I was pronounced dead for 8 full minutes after they gave up and quit trying to revive me. This all stemmed back in 2000 when I went to the hospital and gave birth to my daughter. It was a really long preterm labor situation. I had gone into preterm labor at 17 weeks, in and out of the hospital, the 8 to 10 weeks leading into her birth. I had actually been in the hospital the entire time. So it was a Thursday night and they were going to send me home. And I said, you know what? It's probably a good idea if I stay one more night, because I just have this really bad feeling. And I just have this sense of knowing that something's going to happen. And typically, I think all moms can resonate when they know they're about to have their baby. So the next morning, for sure, I was in active labor before the doctors even came in to do rounds. And then 12 hours goes by and I still wasn't progressing, and they were getting worried. So they went in to put a monitor on the baby's head, which is a physical procedure. And they had to break the waters in order to put the monitor on the head, just to monitor her heartbeat and see if she's stressing. And when they went to break the waters, at first she was fine, but her heartbeat started to drop rapidly. And during that same time period, I was feeling less and less capable of being able to breathe. And I was panicking. I was like, I just cannot breathe. So my mom and another doctor had ordered the anesthesiologist to come in and give me an epidural. And back then, they gave you an epidural. It's a medicine that can contradict with another medication that they would give you in order to go into a C-section. When they gave me my epidural, they were just literally administrating it. And the baby's doctor came running in the room and said, oh my gosh, the heartbeat is 50. We need to get her out right now. We're going to do a C-section. And the anesthesiologist proceeded to remind him, this woman might feel this because we just gave her the epidural. And he looked right at me. I was very young, 17, 18 years old. I was just clueless. All I knew is I couldn't breathe. I had tried so hard to keep this pregnancy going for so long. Obviously, my number one goal was to keep the baby alive. So when he looked at me and said, do you want this baby dead or alive? Of course, I'm going to want my baby alive. So I accepted the risk, went back into C-section, and sure enough, within the first few minutes of the operation, I knew right away I was going to feel it. And by this point, I was feeling paralyzed and I couldn't move and I couldn't open my eyes. It just felt so dry. My mouth felt like a cotton ball, so I couldn't even open my mouth. It just felt like one big cotton ball. And I'm laying there in just excruciating pain, feeling everything, paralyzed, can't talk, and trying to cry, but felt dried up. I couldn't cry. And the whole time I also was struggling with breathing. I was trying to so hard focus on the ability to breathe. And when you take a breath in, I couldn't breathe in much air, but I could breathe out. And I was trying to think, how do I get myself to breathe? Maybe it's a side effect of the C-section. I don't know. I've never had one. So I took as much of a deep breath in that I could and exhaled everything that I could, trying to struggle and really try to take a breath. But as I exhaled this huge breath, I realized I'm in trouble. I can't breathe back in at all. At this point, my monitor started going really crazy, and there was a doctor in the room who was teaching residents because they were a university hospital. And fortunately, he was monitoring my monitors with the staff there. And he said, I think she's having an amniotic fluid embolism. And somewhere in this time period, it was actually the moment I heard my daughter's first cry. It sounded like a high-pitched drill. She was preemie, so her lungs were a little bit more high-pitched. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore. I'm just done. And I popped out of my body because I was just so frightened. And I had been laying there begging God to take me. I'm in so much pain, just get me out of here. And I popped out of my body. And at this point, I'm like, I could breathe. Like, I don't have the sensation that I can't breathe. And it feels so good. The pain is gone. I just feel so relaxed. And I'm watching the whole entire room pan out. And at this point, my body coded and they were reviving me and doing what they can to quickly get me taken care of, to wheel me up to ICU. And I looked over and my fixation was on that newborn baby. I was like, oh, I did it. I brought her in this world. I'm so proud of myself. It was like my number one goal and objective for so long. And here she was. And I could tell that she was going to be a living, breathing baby. There was no problems with her, really, even though she was born 8 weeks early. So then at this point, I don't know how, but I ended up, it's like seeing a bunch of little scenes, Tia. So it's really hard to explain a near-death experience because you just see a scene and then a scene and a scene. And then when you come back to life, you feel like you just experience something so overwhelming and all of these scenes, and it's hard to put them into chronological form. I do have a memory of watching the doctors from above the elevator room. And I'm looking down, I could see their heads, and one of them's not wearing a surgical hat. And he had a bald spot on his head, and I thought that was interesting. It was like my attention was called forward to pay attention to this doctor here who doesn't have a hat on and he has a bald spot, which later I realized it wasn't for my purpose, it was for his purpose. So I was almost co-creating this moment for his future, because this is what turned him into a believer that there's an afterlife later. I see him above the room in the elevator. And then the next scene, I see all the doctors working on my body in another room, and I had no idea where they're at, but they must have been in ICU. And I was just so at peace. I knew I was okay. I did have a scene where I saw my sister talking to my grandfather. And this is really fun too, because it brings a lot of validation that this really did happen. So what I'm doing is I'm observing my sister talking to my grandfather, and she's walking past their waiting room. And her job at the hospital, she worked there, was in the admissions department, and it was her responsibility to manage the entire admissions department. When a physician orders a test and they need it immediately, you have to hand deliver the test. Because if you don't hand deliver it, it goes through a bank tube system. Rather than having it go through a bank tube system, this department would hand deliver it to the ordering physician. So she's bringing my x-ray that they had just done to the doctor up in ICU. And at this point, my grandfather had been there, and he's sitting in the waiting room, and I don't honestly know who else was there. I was only focused on these two individuals. But there were things in the room that are very unique to that specific room that I've never seen before or since, including like the position they were standing and deliberately how she pulled the x-ray out of the folder, trying to keep it concealed. And she shows him a picture of my lungs, and he starts to panic. He's, oh my gosh, what is this on her lungs? And she's like, that's actually the good part of her lungs, and her lungs are 85% full of fluid, or it looks like it. I feel his sense of panic and his thoughts just collapse, and he was very emotional. I felt all of his emotions, and he fell backwards into the waiting room sofa. And back then, I don't know if they're still the same, but it makes like a pillowy sound. So when you sit on it, it was whoosh. I felt his body, almost from his perspective, sit and fall back. And I felt this sensation of giving a Later, when I mentioned this to her and him individually of one another, I was very descriptive of what was in the room and the colors and stuff. They both agreed I did see that, exactly that. When back in the ICU room watching my body, it was like this scene was meant for me so I could understand that I was dying. I was being shown this scene so I could understand that I was dying because I was just so relaxed. I was in a state of confusion, but I felt at peace and calm. I knew I was okay. I knew there was nothing wrong. I was just so full of love and just relaxed. And there was one moment in the ICU room where I was listening to an annoying sound, and somehow sounds really resonate with you there from the other side, especially I think when they're tied to a physical body. So I honed in to the scene and I came down vertically with my head on one side and my feet on the other. So I was like in a laying position. I looked at the monitors and they were flatlined. And I was like, that's that annoying buzzing sound. Like I could tell that it was a machine that was monitoring my heart. So then I turned and went back to the top of the room and some lady met me there. And I looked at her and I could tell she loved me so much. And she had known me for what felt like forever. And she was welcoming me back into this space. And I just felt so alive and at home. And I just knew she loved me so much. And I didn't question anything about what was going on. It felt familiar. It felt like I had experienced this many times before. I didn't question what was going on here. I just knew this is it. It felt more real than being here, to be honest with you. She's looking at me and trying to help me understand that I just died, and she's also welcoming me as she came down to help me and be my guide to take me back to this heaven realm or to cross over formally. I could tell she loved me, and I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I am the one who named you." And I was like, "Oh, you can't lie." We're speaking telepathically. And when you speak telepathically with your heart and your soul, there's just no room to be deceitful. When she said she's the one who named me, I absolutely believed her. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew she was telling me the truth. So then at this point, she brought my attention to my mom, who was looking out of the ICU room, the window, and it was blizzarding and it had like an orange casty glow outside due to the streetlights. I can read her thoughts and feel her emotion. And she was like passionately asking God to come in and take me. And I didn't know why she would ask God to take me. You would think she'd be saying, "Please, God, don't take her. Let her stay here." I think she understood I was gone and was asking God to come take my soul. And this lady next to me, I was in a state of confusion about this. I'm like, why would she ask God to take me when I'm her child? She should ask me to stay. And she said, she's just in a state of surrendering, like surrenderance. She's putting her pure faith in the universe that everything will be okay. She's fine. She doesn't understand everything right now because she's limited to her capacity of understanding, because a part of her is in this little human body. But when she releases from the body, she'll become whole and full of love and knowledge and pure knowingness, just like you and I are. The essence of her, of what's in that body, is of a limited capacity. And I was like, oh, okay. I get it now. Then, in fact, all little tiny bits of anything in my childhood that might have created a future resentment or any feelings of upset, anything that would make me feel upset later in life about anything regarding my childhood, I, in that moment, completely forgave her because I knew she was purely divine and perfect. And only a part of her essence was experiencing this physical realm, and her body is limited in capacity. It's almost like there's a veil put over the body where you don't understand everything about love and light. I turned around and I was told by this lady, okay, turn around and go towards the light now. And even though it didn't feel like I needed to turn around because I was seeing everything from a 360-degree angle, I just looked into the light, and suddenly the light engulfed me. It surrounded me. It was so bright and beautiful and white, and I'm standing there. I think I'm standing there. It feels like I'm standing and floating. And I'm just surrounded by this peaceful, loving light that is so healing to me. And every little bit of me, it was like all of my ego parts and elements of myself were shedding away. And I was becoming more at one with this light. And I knew it was a home for me. It was where I belonged. And the more I'm standing there in it, the more I feel healed and refreshed and rejuvenated. And there's no English words to describe it. I just felt at one and at peace with it. And I could sit in that state forever. It felt amazing. And as I'm there, I'm listening to what sounds like angels singing. And I say what sounds like angels singing because it sounds like voices, but they have musical instruments for voices. They're instruments from another realm. They're not on earth. I have listened to music from all walks of life, ancient music, new age music, every instrumental sound that I've ever been able to find. I'm always exploring sounds here on earth, and I cannot find anything that is slightly remotely compares to it. But there are art depictions out there of angels with instruments in their mouths or holding them up. And it's like they're singing through instruments, and that is as close as I have been able to find. So I know I'm not the only one along the way who has heard these sounds and brought this message forward to say, angels sing. And when they sing, it sounds like instruments, and it's glorifying. And the song resonates in that whole entire realm. So you can feel the vibration of their song filling you and surrounding your soul and all essence of you. And you become one with the sound, with the light. And I felt so at love. And I felt like they were singing a song about me, singing a song about God, singing a song to me, to God, to everything, to all creation. We were all one, and they were just so rejoicing and exhaling, and never needed to inhale at all. It was just pure glorifying music. I'm standing in this space and allowing the vibrations to resonate through me. And after a while, I felt like, okay, this is the main thing. I feel rejuvenated. I feel refreshed. I wonder what's next. And you just stand there and you're like, it's all white and beautiful and clearly I'm in heaven, but what else is here? So my curious mind started going left, and I felt like the angel sounds were coming from my right, maybe, but I wanted to see what was left because I already understood that there's angels to my right. So I go left, and I'm traveling at the light of speed, as fast as light can carry me, as fast as thought can carry me. But at the same time, I was going forward for a long time, just enjoying the way it felt and embracing it, becoming more and more at one with it, like going into the light spectrum even further. And the next thing I know, I was like, okay, there should be something more here, like color, because this is so beautiful and color is beautiful. And then suddenly the most beautiful garden you could ever imagine. It is indescribable. It is like Avatar on steroids times a million. Everything, all the lights were so pure and vibrant, and they had an energy frequency. You are at one with the frequency. You feel like everything is alive and of one consciousness, and you are enveloped into this beautiful, resonating energy. And all the colors were alive. All of the plants were alive. Every tiny movement, you could feel it. It was a part of you. And the flowers were like blooming in front of you. The leaves would move and sway in front of you. And you don't miss one single movement. You notice everything, and everything is alive and has a one beautiful big consciousness. So I'm traveling down this pathway that just somehow carved out in front of me, and I'm on this path, and I can even feel the rocks and the soil of the minerals below my feet also carry a consciousness, and they're all in perfect harmony with this angel sounds that are still playing, by the way. And I'm traveling through this garden, I'm just admiring everything. As I'm looking at something, it almost puts on a show for me. And I was thinking there should be beautiful creatures here because everything is so beautiful. It should be more than just flowers and plants. And then there were suddenly these beautiful creatures that, I don't know, like a mix. I try to even recall what they are, but they were like a mixture of beautiful things like fairies and dragonflies all mixed in one. I remember they were communicating to me, saying, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for bringing me here almost. We were literally co-creating the moment. And I just was having so much joy. This was my heaven. Being in a garden co-creating is my heaven. And I get to this fork in the road and I realize I can go left or go right. Left felt very jungly and the path seemed to open to my right. So I knew I needed to go right. And I think that's unique and amazing because in the Bible it says Jesus is on the right-hand side of God and God is love and God is light. So I take a right and I go down this path and it opens up to this beautiful courtyard. And I feel like there were tellers or something ancient Greek maybe around us, but I wasn't paying attention. I didn't care. I only cared about this man sitting on a bench with his back faced to me, and he turned and greeted me and beckoned me and come sit with him. So I went in there and I sat down and I had no idea what to expect. I didn't feel like I was going to be judged. I didn't feel like I was going to see a life review. So many people feel like when you go to heaven, you're going to be judged. You're not going to be accepted. You're going to go to hell. And I had just had a baby, born out of wedlock, single mom. I'm experiencing this, and not one single ounce of me was worried at all. I was just surrounded by the loving embracement of this man. So I sit next to him. I think I might have been sitting on his lap. I don't know. I was just very close, being brought into a conversation. He had light brown hair. It glowed and shimmered a little bit. His eyes absolutely had a light to them. They had a light brown eye color. I don't know how to explain it. All I can say is the husband I'm with now has eyes similar, which is what I think brought me to his heart right away. So I'm looking at this guy in front of me's eyes and they're speaking to me. And that's when I realized, oh, we can talk telepathically. You're not opening your mouth and you're speaking to me. Anyways, I'm looking at his eyes and he's just telling me how wonderful I did. I was absolutely perfect. I did everything wonderful. He was saying, you are absolutely beautiful. I love you so much. I've always been with you. You did so good. I am so proud of you. I love you so much. And there's nothing you could ever do or say that would ever deter me from thinking otherwise. Like, there were no negative feelings. It was just pure positive. So I'm being downloaded through her eyes, this message of pure love. And I did everything good and nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to worry about. I'm just sitting there enjoying it and enjoying this experience. And suddenly I'm like, wait, you said you were there with me my whole life. And you know what? There were parts of my life where I didn't feel like anybody was there. I felt alone. And I really could have felt you in those moments. And he said, I was actually with you all along. And he showed me all of these moments in life. Like, when this lady did this for you, that was me. When this stranger in your small town did this kind act to you, that was me. And I said, but there were times when I was alone and I didn't feel anything. Where were you then? I had an imaginary friend when I was a child, and it was a very vivid imaginary friend. I talked about her all the time. And I ironically called her Coco, and my brother called me Coco in reality because he couldn't say Crystal, so he called me Coco. And my family thought it was really funny that my imaginary friend's name was also Coco. And he all of a sudden, if I had a past life review, this is it. I had all these like life scenes where I was able to observe my 17, 18-year-old self playing with my younger self, giving me comfort in times of need. And in this moment of my review, I'm observing it from the lens of a light switch on the wall, or a door frame, or the light fixture above the ceiling, or a piece of furniture, or a mirror. And I'm being shown all of these scenes where I'm being comforted and loved by my 17-year-old self, and my younger self fully embraced my older self. And I realized there that no one could love me more than myself, because I am God and the essence of God is inside of me. But I'm being shown this, and it's beautiful. So now I'm back in the garden. I feel like he was saying, okay, come with me. And I was a little bit concerned. I was like, I feel like something isn't right. Something's missing. I'm not recalling something here. What's going on? And I felt like that girl in Labyrinth where she falls into her old bedroom and has amnesia and she can't remember. She's picking up her toys and not remembering that she needs to rescue her brother. But I'm in there and I'm like, the sense of there's something I'm missing here. I can't quite recall what's going on. And he's like, it's okay. It's okay. It was like he was distracting me by not having me worry, but he was also showing me what I was leaving undone. And it was okay. It's just fine. So he points and beckons forward. And I noticed there's these 3 babies sitting all of a sudden a little bit further out in front of us. Now, I don't know where they came from, but they just appeared. And they were old enough to sit up on their own, and they were wearing these white shimmery gowns, and they had halos, lights coming from around them and behind them that gave them the appearance they had halos. So I felt like they were little cherub angels, but yet I knew they weren't. And they were just so adorable, and their little eyes and hair sparkled and shimmered, and they were just so purely beautiful. There's no way to describe them, but I remember being overjoyed in the moment because I've always loved babies with all of my heart. I love these babies. They're so beautiful. And I look at one of them and I was thinking to myself, I would love to pick this baby up. I'm just going to go pick it up. And all of a sudden it like started speaking to me quite abruptly. And it was like, you can't just pick me up. I'm my own wise spiritual being. You can't just pick me up. Stop right there. It was stopping me. I have a free will. You cannot pick me up. You need my permission to pick me up. I am exactly like you. I'm a divine being, just like you. Like, don't belittle me. It was all one message. But I was so taken aback. I was like, oh my God. I can't believe this baby read my mind. I can't believe it could talk back to me, because that is not what I remembered in my earthly world, that babies can talk back. I go into shock. I suddenly find myself in a black space. And I'm in this black space of absolutely nothingness. There was pure silence. The angel sounds were gone. No noise, no white noise, no frequency waves, no energy, no thoughts, nothing. I'm surrounded in a 360-degree room or space that endlessly goes out to all infinite spaces in all directions. It was the absence of light, as if almost light can cast a limiting end to where you can go. So I'm in this space and I'm just being there. And it was like where the Bible says, in the beginning, there was nothing. And you're literally in a state of nothingness, yet it's everythingness too. And you feel so calm and relaxed. And I sat there in this state for what felt like billions of years, which is so hard to comprehend in our human bodies today, expressing this thought to you. But I felt all of everything before there was anything for a really long time. And I'm in this space completely calm. And then suddenly, just like a pop, while I'm in this velvety black space, I felt like a pop. And it was like my first thought. I was like, wait a minute, I have a me. There's a sense of me. So this is where the divine steps away and becomes something. It becomes aware of oneself. And I popped out and I became aware of my one self. And I was like, okay, so I have a thought. I can think. And I have a sense of me. There's a me here, but I'm just a thought and I can only think. Like I don't feel like I have a being or a body, and I wasn't questioning whether I even did. I just felt like I have a thought. And I sat there in this space for a long time. And every once in a while, it was like a deep state of meditation. I would like, oh yeah, I have a thought. I'm here. And a whole bunch more time goes by. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, so I wonder what I'm supposed to do here. Maybe there should be something going on. So I thought maybe there should be something here. So I manifested this spark of color, but it wasn't like the bright white space that I had just come from. It was like a very stark, bright color. And it shot across the sky like a shooting star as fast as my perception of it could move. It was like I was watching it. And I created this light. And then I'm playing with this ability to create form, to create a light. And pretty soon I'm in a fireworks show, a little mini one. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And I sat there again for a really long time. And then I was like, at some point in this, I began to question, oh yeah, wait a minute. I had a life. I had a life, and now I'm here, and I'm going to be infinitely here. And I truly believed I was going to be infinitely in this space forever, because I had just spent 1 billion years here. So I was like, oh my gosh, is this hell? I remember my last human life, and I was taught about heaven and hell in Bible school. This must be what hell is. And it suddenly, I created and manifested fear. And I became so engulfed with fear. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is it. This is it. I'm going to be here forever. I'm going to be here forever. And I'm just going to be in this black space. And I suddenly started begging for light or comfort. And I had this extreme, intense moment, just a moment, because it only took a moment for some other being to step in and intervene and pull me out. And my self-creation became a co-creation, and some being came in and took me and brought me into this white void space again. I'm in this white space, and I feel like I'm in a laying position, but I don't feel like I have a body. And I don't know how to explain this. So it's like a ball of consciousness, and I'm laying in a laying position. And I'm in a white room now. So unlike the first scene where I felt like the white vastness goes on absolutely forever, and the black vastness goes on absolutely forever, I'm in this white room where it definitely has a limitation to it. And I felt like it was an oval-shaped room. And I just had this sense of knowing. And I'm in here, and I am like trying to adjust my eyes to the bright white light. And this almost seems like an artificial light, almost as if there was a light on me. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm sitting here thinking. Now my thoughts are coming back really fast. It's like that black void space is the absence of thought. And now my amnesia has been dropped, and I suddenly become back into awareness, into some sort of physical realm and dimensional realm. And I was like, am I back on the hospital bed? I can't move. I don't feel like my body's here. Is there some bright white light focusing right on my face? Are they looking at me? I just couldn't comprehend why it was so bright white light and artificially lit. I'm in here, and suddenly my eyes begin to adjust to the light, which tells you it's a different type of dimension. And there's what appears to me as a being, a very tall interdimensional being, steps forward towards where the foot of my bed would be if I was in a laying position. And I'm just continuing now allowing my eyes to adjust to the bright white light. And I look up at the being's eyes, and I could tell they're a clear, sharp, bright blue, very hard color to explain. The color there is so much more sharp. So I'm looking at the eyes, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness I got a being here. That means we can talk telepathically. I can figure out what's going on. I can ask, am I dead or alive? What's going to happen next? And, oh yeah, that's right. I just had a baby and I want her back. And all of that amnesia just suddenly dropped, and I'm in this moment of reality, pure reality. And nothing felt cloudy anymore. This becomes more and more my eyes become more and more aware of it. And I recognize there's a light coming from behind the being. And it's almost, if you could imagine a whole series of lights coming up out of the back of your spine and then shooting off above you and around you, it would look like angel wings. And it would look like a halo overhead. This is what in my mind was like an angel, but it still didn't feel like what you would expect an angel to be like according to biblical scripture. It felt more like an interdimensional being. And when I first came back to life, I literally said interdimensional being my entire existence since then. And asking this interdimensional being to look at me in the eyes so that I can get clarity of what's going on here. I suddenly was full of questions. I want to know if I was going to go back. I want to know where my baby was. I didn't want to die yet. And if I did, I would be very okay with that. I just wanted my baby back. And I kept asking it, please look at me in the eyes, look at me in the eyes. And this being was definitely really stubborn for reasons I probably don't understand today. So after a while, it eventually looked at me in the eyes, but it was almost like I'm warning you, you don't want me to look you in the eyes. And I realized then it was an extremely powerful being. And its eyes turned from blue to white, and like laser beams, I felt myself being pushed back really hard and fast. And the surge of downloadable energy, like electricity bolts, came through me. And I always think about this. I'm like, I have no idea what I look like to her. Was I just a ball of light, a ball of energy, an orb, a human? What did I look like? I have no idea. But when she looked at me, I felt like, if you could imagine a ball of light just suddenly blowing up with pure white light and exploding, that's what I felt like. I'm being paralyzed. I can't move. I'm just being in this moment with her, and with our eyes, it was like Jedi energy. And I'm begging her. I'm like, okay, like she was telling me, okay, you're done. You can go back to Earth now. I'm sorry, your baby doesn't get to come with you. She's fine. She's just fine. Everything's going to be okay. Everything is being beautifully orchestrated. This is the way it's supposed to be. And you're here with me, and she's there because that is exactly what needs to happen. And I was like, no. And imagine how hard it is to push back when you are being surged with this much telepathic knowledge and energy. And I'm a stubborn person. And I was like, no, you have to go get her or send me back. And then at this point, I started going through all the stages of grief, and I'm getting angry, and I am super sad, and I am bargaining, and I'm begging, and I am going through all the stages of grief very quickly, and all of my emotions come out that can possibly come out. And now all of a sudden, I almost at a complete point of surrendering, and I have one tiny bit of me left, one tiny figment, and it didn't want to let go. And I said, please send me back to my baby. And it reminded me of something that the Jesus guy in the garden had said, where he said, you could do more for a human being here in the heaven realm than you ever can on the earthly realm. And this angel being was reminding me, you can do more for your baby here in heaven than you ever can on earth through the works of others. And at this point, I do remember, I don't talk about this a lot, but I do remember being shown different possible futures for this baby. And I saw a future with the baby without me, and I saw a future in the baby with me. And the one without me, this baby was being given love from so many different perspectives and different people in life. And then the one with me was me holding her and being able to share that true love. And I was really being told, it's better for you not to be there. And this is really hard to say because a lot of people who are watching this may be grieving or about to experience a death, or maybe just experience the death of a loved one. But I'm telling you, it's good either way. And I was being shown it's probably better to not be there with her. But there was this part of me where I knew there would be moments that baby wouldn't have her mother. And I just said, please, send me back. Just let me be her earthly mother, giving her all that love there. I promise you, I'll bring her back here. And she will come back more powerfully and more full of love with my aid and assistance, which would be more glorifying for this whole heaven realm. It eventually was like, okay, let me just be honest with you, Crystal. It said, I can't just do that for you because I don't have the authority. Your body is wasted. It is ruined. You cannot go back in it. It is done. And I was like, wait, did you say you don't have the authority? I was still being stubborn. I was like, can you get the authority? Go get the authority. And I started begging, and it sensed that I was it knew. It was like, the message here was, I was asking for something powerful and loving for another being's sake, not my own. It wasn't my own selfish will to come back here and live a life. It was a selfless role of me coming back here and raising this baby and bringing her back to heaven and doing a deed of love. And once that angel understood it was a selfless act, then I got permission. And that's super important when it comes to manifesting and co-creating and understanding what love is and what life is and how to be spiritually, divinely in tune with yourself and your spiritual path. It was like every bit of her understood I was definitely selflessly in alliance with what they perceived we need to do for humanity on earth. And she looked above my head like where a halo would be, or maybe my ball of consciousness. And all of a sudden I felt like I was in a body for the first time since I crossed over into the light. And I felt this energy surge from the floor to the ceiling come up through my body. And at this point, I know the healing power of God literally touched my human body and raised my breath back into my body. And I was being healed. So God literally healed me. They tried to revive me for 45 minutes. They knew my lungs were just completely saturated with amniotic fluid. It got into my lungs by going through my bloodstream, so the fluid saturated all of my major organs on the way. You would think I would have experienced a lot more physical trauma than what I did, and I still had a long road of recovery ahead of me. But for the most part, I miraculously was healed in this moment. And I felt myself being put back into my body and all this energy and sensation that everything's going to be okay. It was pure love, pure hope, pure knowledge. Everything is going to be okay. And it went back into my body. I felt my body rise and fall down. And I think that's when the breath of life went back in me. And at this point, my body had been abandoned in a room with one nurse taking care of my deceased body, cleaning it up and taking care of it. And there was no one else in the room but my mom, who was still standing by the window. And she says she felt the same energy power come from the floor to the ceiling, and her whole body lifted and she collapsed on the ground at the same time. My heart started beating again. And I always forget to leave this message out, but it's important because she keeps saying, don't forget to tell them that part. So when she collapsed, the nurse saw my heart monitor starting to beat again. And she saw my mom collapse across the room, and she's probably torn. She's like, I don't know what I should do here. Do I run and rescue this woman who just fell down, who fainted? At this point, I don't know how it happened. I had a ventilator in me. So she flipped down or something, and she ran over to address my mom. And then the doctors were running back in the room because they can see the vital signs from the hallway that they had started coming back on. And then they took action. They go in there and they add morphine, or I don't even know what. But they were only waiting for my family to come say goodbye to me. It was about midnight, and they had no intentions at all of keeping my body alive, except for the need of allowing family to come say goodbye to me because they thought I was completely gone. And long story short to you, I woke up a few days later, and I ended up, after 8 weeks in ICU, I went home with almost no health conditions. I had zero voice for a year. I had to do speech therapy. I had all sorts of issues with ulcers, and my kidney and liver have been a battle since then, but it's been regulated. But about 6 months after this experience, I was staying the night at my mom's house, and I came down in the middle of the night. And at the time, she was really into genealogy, and she was doing all this research, trying to find someone in her family. And I didn't have a voice, so I went over to her, and I was gonna say, sorry, I'm just gonna get a drink of water or whatever. And I saw this picture of these girls sitting on a brick wall, and there was like 8 or 9, quite a few girls sitting on a brick wall. It's black and white. It's not even good definition, not even up close. But right in the middle of them, I saw the same lady who met me from above the room. I remember I definitely met her, and I got really excited, and she just wouldn't listen to me. And I grabbed a notebook, because at the time, again, I couldn't talk, so I had to write it down. I met her from above the room. She's the one who told me. She's the one who named me. And that's literally what I wrote down. Still have the paper today. It's going in my book. And my mom wouldn't listen to me. So she proceeded to tell me, there's no way you could have met her, honey. I was 8.5 months pregnant with you when she died. And I was like, I met her. She goes, no, you didn't. You did not meet her. And then I showed her what I wrote. And my mom is not a very emotional person. And she just started crying and sobbing and couldn't really collect herself for a moment. And finally she said, how did you know that? And I was like, that her above the room, she's the one who said I made her read it again. And she was just in shock. She's like, actually, you're right. Because when I went to go visit her, I just had an ultrasound about a month before. And this was back in 1982, and ultrasounds were not that accurate. And I was told I was going to have a boy. And she said to me on her deathbed, no, honey, you're going to have a girl. You're going to have a girl, and you're going to name her Crystal Faith, because she's going to have pure faith in this world. And my mom said, no, and she just totally discounted and blew it off. And then sure enough, when I came out a girl and not a boy, and her grandma had just passed away, which was her maternal grandmother. She didn't have a girl's name picked out, so she named me Crystal Faith, just like she had suggested. And everybody always told my mom, that is the most beautiful name. How'd you ever come up with it? And my mom said, I never wanted to tell anybody the truth. I always took the credit. And I always said, I don't know, I just thought of it. And My mom began sobbing in this moment because she realized her grandmother was coming forward and giving her the same message that she had given her whole entire life, where she was saying, you can't take everybody else's credit, honey. You got to give them credit. So she said, even after her death, 18 years later, she's given me the same message. It's not like, it's almost like it's not all about you, right? You got to give credit where it's deserved. And that's when my name became known. It is Crystal Faith. And I do have pure faith in this world ever since I found this out. It's all about love and bringing love to other people and aligning our soul to pure love and pure faith, that everything is going to be okay. And the more you surrender yourself, the more you're going to be able to feel that love. So I have a website. It's crystalfaith.net. And I want to say here too that if anybody has any questions or wants to just talk for any reason at all, I have a book a call appointment option for me or with me. Do not hesitate to go ahead and schedule that, just to have a 30, 60-minute conversation with somebody who maybe can answer any of your own questions. I'm here for you. I also have a couple of IANDs. It's IANDS.org. IANDS support groups where I help people digest what just happened to them, and IANDS does a great job of supporting all different types of near-death experiences or just helping people with grieving. But yeah, go to my website. And then I'm also going to go further into Insights QT on my YouTube channel. So if somebody wants to follow me on YouTube, I'll leave a comment below and just follow me. I haven't put anything up there yet, but I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of releases here soon. It's literally all about love. And the more you surrender to it, the more you'll be in line with it, no matter what the circumstances.